First of all, thank you for coming out tonight. It's important that we hear public feedback. I know the city council all wants to incorporate citizen input into this process. So this is one of the town halls is designed to do that. So we're interested in hearing your feedback, and we have two things going on today. The first one is we're going to be talking about the recreational center and the opportunities there. And then we're going to do the second piece is to get feedback on the concepts for the library, senior center, and the community building. So there'll be two parts to this. The first part is going to be the rec center. But before, I'm going to get to that. So my name is Jeff Grover. I'm with PGAL. I've got two of my colleagues with me, Justine Markowski and Juan Garcia. We're the design team for the project. And so before I get started, I wanted to just talk globally about back in June of 2022, the City Council adopted what is called the 2022 Facilities Master Plan. And as part of that facility master plan, there were 4 phases. The first phase was moving the public works operations over to Dinkins. The second phase was to do the library, community building, and senior center. The third phase was to do a new fire station. And the fourth phase was to renovate the municipal building. Since that time, the city has received lots of feedback about the facilities master plan. And several months ago, the City Council asked staff to look at options for phases 3 and 4. Phases 1 and 2 are still, as I described earlier, but last night, the City Council voted to amend the 22 Facilities Master Plan to change phases 3 and 4. So the changes to phase 3 is that there will be a new city hall that will be located at the corner of Rice and Auden, which would allow the fire station to remain in the existing municipal building as part of phase 4. So just to give you, and again, this is all information that was done last night, so I know it's on the city's website if you want more information, but that was a modification to the facilities plan that happened last night. Okay, so we're here to talk about phase 2. So phase 2 includes the modifications to the rec center, as well as the new library, senior center, community building. So we're going to talk about the recreational center piece first. If we get the machine to work. Okay. So the agenda for the rec center piece is that we're going to review areas of the existing recreation building that have been identified for revision. Justine, can you go rotate that board for me, please? And then the second part is we want to gather information and feedback from the community tonight. You all should have received a comment card as you walk in, where we want to focus on this first piece on the rec center and any thoughts that you have about how these particular spaces could be modified. So input that we would like for you to focus on are any new programs of interest that might be offered in these areas in the rec center, as well as potentially expanding existing program areas within the building. So the two areas, there are areas on both the first floor and the second floor. This is the floor plan of the existing rec center that you might be familiar with. You've got the pool located here. This is the entrance, the reception desk, the classrooms, the locker room areas, multi-purpose room, the racquetball courts that are located here. So the areas that are open for reconsideration, these two spaces here in yellow, those are spaces that are going to be moved to the new public works facilities and as part of the Dingus project. So that square footage is available for reuse. Right here. And then the other area that is being considered for possible reuse based on use is the racquetball courts, and whether or not those could be modified to accommodate different kinds of programs, and what kind of programs could those be. And then areas on the second floor are the areas here in red. This is where cardio and the weight room are now. There's some office space, and then this is the open balcony area. There's been discussion about potentially those spaces need to expand to offer more options for equipment or for other activities, stretching, other things. So what we're hoping to gather in this first section are the community's thoughts about the rec center building and what your thoughts are about potential new opportunities that should be considered. What we're going to do with that information is we're going to gather it, we're going to take it to the Parks Board, and they're going to start their process about how they normally do for park improvements to go through other public conversations, but this will be the beginning of gathering of the community in this room about what your thoughts are regarding that. So you should have received a piece of paper, and there's more, you can get more if you need. You should have pens. What we're hoping you will do is take the time to write out any thoughts you have about the rec center, specifically about the areas that we mentioned that are in consideration for either modification or repurposing. So any questions about that? Yes, sir.
So I apologize, maybe there were materials I should have read beforehand, but I'm concerned that that question may be a little too open-ended, and I was hoping you could narrow it down a little for me. For instance, downstairs, there's currently 2 basketball courts. When you say repurpose, do we have any global idea of what we're talking about? Because there's a million things that could be done, right?
For sure. I think what we're looking at is what, if you think about it in programs, because that's the easiest way to think about it, is what types of programs or spaces that would be good additions to the rec center offerings that are already there, right? And so I think the obvious answer on one is that there was a time when there was consideration about maybe putting some other use, maybe a basketball goal was being considered at one point. It's too small. I can tell you it's too small for a pickleball court because I was asked to evaluate that, but it is too small for that. But that is the area that is here. This center wall can be removed, so that can be either a big space or it could be multiple other spaces. Yes, sir.
So just to be clear for myself and maybe anyone else, think of it as a big square with a hard floor.
Well, the flooring could be changed, right? The ceiling could be modified, but the shell walls that would be there, obviously the outside wall is likely going to stay. This wall, and then obviously the front wall. So basically it could be 2 separate spaces, or it could be 1 big space, right? And I know that there has been feedback from the community about potentially an indoor play area for toddlers was one conversation that I know the city has had. But there could be other types of uses that you have that as users of that space. So, does everyone have a comment card they would like anyone need a comment card or a pen? What we're going to do is gather that information. I will read them, and if there's a response I can give, I will. But again, this is the beginning of the programming process. We're not making decisions tonight. This information will go to the Parks Board, and we'll be telling the Parks Board what information was gathered here, and then they'll be engaged in the process about how it ultimately gets pulled together. Does that make sense? Okay, does anybody need a comment card or a pen? And if you have them, I'll come by. You can help us gather any that are out here, please. embarrassed to read handwriting, so if I can read mine, I think I can read yours. Okay, the first comment here is make it more modern and new. Weight room and cardio room expansion is needed. More modern. Yoga, meditation classrooms. Make center more inviting, more beautiful kids play area. The next one is, a week ago, I, along with half a dozen other parents, stood in front of the city council and shared personal stories about the safety of our children due to vehicular traffic in Westview, and each of us advocated strongly for council to fund pedestrian mobility efforts for the sake of safety for our children. I am pleased that the council is taking action and as part of the new master plan is advocating to close Milton Street between College and Auden. This section of Milton is rarely used and it is a one-way road that causes confusion. I have witnessed drivers going the wrong way on this section of Milton many times. Closing in and making it a pedestrian corridor is the exact thing we should be doing. I strongly encourage our city to push forward with this design and continue pursuing other pedestrian-friendly projects. So this sounds like it's more related to the next piece. So I'll reread this one when we get to that one because there'll be some more to talk about. This one, in the weight room, we need a second of weight machines for busy times. Also, we need at least 2 chairs for those people who currently rest on the leg press and overhead lift machines, and hog the machines from people who want to work out. The next one is expanded hours, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. please. Expanded cardiovascular weight room and additional equipment, more weight equipment for legs. The next one is expand fitness room to include floor exercise area. The next one is the upstairs fitness room where the machines are is small and dark. It would be nice to have large windows with sunlight. The next one is, it would be a little small, but I love the idea of two goal basketball court. If you allow them, the rims to move, you can at most leave the racket courts if the middle wall were to collapse, was collapsible. I strongly believe it should remain hardwood court. I would try to add as many options like pickleball as possible, make it multiple. Nothing after the multiple. The next one is, would be great to have more space for the weights and exercise bikes and treadmills. The next one is, what is the intended life for the updated rec center? Was it supposed to have been renovated so quickly? So this is really not a it's a repurposing of spaces to accommodate programs. So I wouldn't think about this as a renovation to upgrade the facility necessarily. This is really about taking space that is offices, for example, and what could you use it for by making it a different kind of use, if that makes sense. The next one is there potential to accommodate pickleball at the rec center instead of putting a permanent court in a seniors only space, potentially repurposing huge parking lot or often empty interior rooms, racquetball courts? Question. The next one is, can the roof be modified to allow for outdoor swimming? Next one is possible more yoga classes. The next one is, please, more cardio exercise space, need area for floor mat work. no nursery area, please. The next one is, why do we not open at 5 a.m. anymore? The next one is, please expand the cardio and weight room. It's too much wasted space upstairs, not enough weight equipment. The next is, expand cardio weight facility. 2 rowing machines are in the hallway. People also go in the hallway to stretch. Racquetball court 2, and then there's nothing after that. And then there's badminton, question mark, and the yoga rooms, question mark. The next one is, I use the pool 2 times per week and gym area 3 or 4 times. Usually come between 9 a.m. and 11. Rarely have trouble accessing equipment on the pool lane at that time. Current configuration suits me well. Biggest need is probably space for mat work, which many folks now do in the hall, perhaps the yellow area. Which I think they mean this area here. The next one is very good, no need to expand. Any other comments regarding the recreation center? Yes.
I do think, having spent some time looking at this, that those old maintenance rooms, the yellow ones, are very small. So whatever it is we end up doing, I think we have to keep our minds to what has the smallest footprint, because that's definitely what you need to focus on, is when it's the maintenance space. A number of people talk about mats, right? Mats have a small footprint, individual maintenance. Just taking that out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else recreational center? If not, we're going to switch gears and move to the library, senior center, community building. So we have a short presentation. Yes.
Just to reiterate that recent information coming out.
Yes. So again, we're taking this information to the Parks Board, and once we share this with them, there should be additional information about what the next steps of process, where the citizens could provide input into the development of this property. Okay. So we have a short presentation. And then we're, again, our purpose here is to review some concept work that we've developed for the library, community building, and the senior center. And we want to gather your feedback on ranking some of the options that we're going to show you. We're going to show you options. We're not showing you here's the answer. We're still in the information gathering stage. We're here to gather input and then take that input and package it up together so that the city can use it and we can use it to help develop this project to be what the city wants it to be. So that is the purpose today. We have several things that we want to walk you through. The things that we want to gather your input on are pedestrian and vehicular movements through the Civic Center area. We want to gather input about the small groundwater tank and potential locations and treatments. We want to gather your input on the space program for the library, senior center, and community building. We're going to show you some test fit concepts for the building that we want to gather some feedback on. And then we have some potential architectural elevation strategies that we want to get some feedback about what your vision is for how the aesthetics of this building should be. So those are the topics. I've got some information we're going to show you. We have some boards against the perimeter of the wall that once we're finished, we're going to turn those around. And we're going to gather your input in 2 different ways. We're going to hand you out some new comment cards that you could comment on any part of this however you want to. But we're also going to give you some dots to apply apply to these various options. And I'll explain that to you later so that you can give us some direct feedback on preferences on some of these options that we're going to talk about. That's how we're going to gather sort of general feedback. Does that make sense? So to begin with, we're going to go through the ideas, and then we'll turn it around to the boards. Next slide, please. So the first thing we want to talk about is the pedestrian and vehicular movements through the Civic Center area. And I just want to start out by saying that nothing's going to happen here unless there's a traffic study to support doing nothing or doing a change, right? So there are two different site plan options that have been developed. About a month ago, we presented multiple scenarios in a workshop to City Council. They provided some feedback about not only the site circulation areas, but also building configurations, that we narrowed that information down in order to be able to share that with the community in order to gather your input on these other scenarios. So there are two different options for site circulation. So this first one we're calling Site Plan A. And this is the site located right here. This is the municipal building located right here, and this is where the existing senior citizen building where we are currently. So how to read this map is we're trying to show you that this is showing the vehicular traffic in the one way, in the way it currently is on Milton and Amherst, and then there's two-way traffic on the perimeter streets. So in terms of vehicular traffic in this option, there's no change. We're also wanting to remind you that there's pedestrian traffic through this area is important. So currently there's sidewalks in all the perimeters, but as part of the urban planning, if you remember, there was a discussion about enhancing those sidewalks, making them wider inside the Civic Center area as a potential option that would help mobility of pedestrians to the Civic Center. So that could happen on these various side areas within the zone. And then so we're showing you how vehicles would access city parking lots. This would turn into a city parking lot, which is where the operations buildings, our maintenance buildings are now. There is a single loaded parking lot drive access that's located right at this edge of the site. It has 90-degree parking located on the side. And pedestrians would access the municipal building and this site the way they do today. And then we're showing you how cars could get into those parking lots like you do today. Again, I'm only showing city-owned parking in these examples. So in this site plan A, I'm representing in this area, which includes this parking lot and the street parking, and that there's 35 parking spaces in this zone right here. There's 10 more parking spaces that are I'm calling on-site, which is right here. And there's 21 spaces, angled spaces on street. So that gives you an idea about what parking we're showing in this area under this scheme. And this represents about 17,000 square feet of green space, not counting the area around the existing water tank. If you can go to the next slide, please. So this is just a more rendered version of that same site plan, so you could understand. We are intentionally isolating the water tank from this conversation. So we want to gather feedback on circulation by itself. We're going to want to get information on the water tanks by itself, and the building test pits by themselves, and then the architectural strategies by themselves. So we're trying to isolate those so we understand your feedback on which topic more clearly. Does that make sense? So again, we're focused here on circulation, and this just gives you an idea about how that could work. And again, we've colored in the city parking on-site parking spaces. If you can go to the next one, please. We're calling this Site Plan B. Site Plan B is where we are stopping Milton at the edge of the site and expanding this site across where Milton currently is to create additional space in this zone. So in this scenario, let's say with the vehiculars, we still have one-way travel down both streets, but you connect through this area to utilize Milton going like through there. So you would access it like that. Two-way traffic on all the perimeters like you have today. Again, this is option B. What is showing up here is there's 39 spaces. There's 14 spaces located in this area right here. And then there's 6 spaces on site. And then this one, because we've captured additional green space here, again, not counting the water tank area, we have 22,600 square feet in this particular option B. You can go to the next slide, please. Again, this is just a rendered version of that. And again, as I stated in the beginning, nothing will, until the traffic study needs to be done on doing no change versus also doing any modifications to prove out that it really works. Okay, so that is the vehicular and pedestrian traffic. You can go to the next section. The next section is going to talk about the water tanks and what are the potential options regarding the water tanks. So there are 4 different options we're going to talk about tonight. And what we're trying to do is to get your feedback on preferences. If you have, and we're not talking about cost tonight because we're still gathering information on cost, but we want to get some feedback on if there's a preference related to how you would like to see the water tank. There is a replacement project that's going to happen for the small tank within the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years. So really the question is what do we do with that when that happens? And we would want to plan this area to accommodate that. So this first option 1 is that we're leaving the water tank, basically rebuilding it in place just like it is now. Now what would be different is that we know that we have to provide an 8-foot high fence or screen at a minimum in order to accommodate the Homeland Security requirements to protect that tank. But it would potentially be able to open up some additional green space around it. You just wouldn't be able to go up and walk up next to the tank because it would be protected by at least an 8-foot high fence. The pump room that goes along with it, currently it's in a pump building right here. In this option, we're showing it that the new pump building, the new pump room would be attached to the new building. So as opposed to a standalone building for that, it would be attached and connected and maybe more hidden that way than a standalone building. And then obviously the existing large water tank is still in its current location. This is option 1. Next one, please. So we talked about screening the water tank. So we're going to talk about this and maybe in any of these options, we just want to talk about what is possible. Yes, you can just put a 8-foot high fence you can't see through. That's the minimum requirement. Actually, it doesn't even have to be, you can see through it. It just has to be 8-foot high for security. So the minimum option is we could make it so you can't see through it. But there's other options that we started to explore during the urban planning phase, is that maybe there's a more decorative screening that could be placed around it that would make it feel more like it's purposeful there. If it has to be there, let's deal with it. And so there are some different treatments. These are just some examples of them that have some metal screens that could be lit up potentially, or potentially a green screen that could be planted around it where it ended up being a green screen. And obviously we could make it higher so you couldn't see the tank as well. But at least it has to be 8 foot high. So again, that's possible in any of these tank options we're going to show you. Next, please. This option 2 is that we're leaving the small tank where it is today, but we're going to bury it. We're going to put it in the ground, and what we are allowed to do by the agency is that we have to expose the top of it. So we can't completely bury it where you can walk on top of it, but we can bury it to where it's only the crown of it is exposed, and it might be only a couple feet high, but we still have to put an 8 foot high fence around it under that scenario. So it wouldn't be a visual barrier necessarily, as it is now, but at least it would be in the ground and it would be buried. And in this option, we're showing it in this existing spot, yes.
Okay, I live over there near that big tank, and, well, I didn't, where's the little tank? I didn't even know where it was our house. Well, that's the little tank.
This is the little tank, yes. This is the big tank.
By the church. Well, I'm really confused.
This is Amherst, this is College. And Milton is up here. This is the current location.
I'll walk you by.
This is the current location. We're just saying that an option is build it like it is, replace it in kind. Another option is stick it in the ground as far as we can do it. Again, the rules are, as we understand it, is we still have to have that fence around. It has to be 8 foot high, but at least the tank would be, only a couple feet high out of the ground. Option 3. Option 3 is remove the tank across the street. Relocate it in the current, where the current Public Works maintenance facility is. We would locate the tank here. It could be above ground or it could be buried like we talked about previously. We still have to put the perimeter fence around it. And if we moved it over there, we would likely put the pump building over there with it. The advantage of this one is that now this becomes free and open green space with no limitations.
But that backs up to the houses.
It does back up to those houses, correct. The pump building does. The tank is over so closer.
I don't like that idea.
I'm saying, again, an option is that it gets buried and it's only a couple feet out of the ground. That is an option with the relocation.
Is the pump making noise?
So we have gathered information on the acoustics of the existing pumps. And we've done it inside and we've done it outside. This is of the existing conditions. And it's actually not bad. Well, the decibel rating is not much more than 2 residential air conditioning units that you probably have outside your house. That's what you would hear outside of a building with all 4 pumps running at the same time. That's what happens over there now. And we verified that with a sound meter.
I just like the pump.
So this is option 3. So in option 3, the big tank is here. So again, the benefit of this, we have less parking because we're moving it and reducing the amount of parking here. But the advantage of that is we're picking up some additional green space where the tank footprint is today.
You could do events.
That was
CT events.
For sure. It just creates a bigger space. And then option 4. Yeah.
So as we're replacing that tank in 5 to 10 years, does that fix this issue where we're actually replacing the tank in 5 to 10 years? So it'll be there for the life of the tank?
If we rebuild or move it, it would have a new life of a tank, right? Because it's coming up on end of life. So option 4 is a different approach. In this option, we're taking and replacing the large tank with a dual tank that has both tanks together. And it can be partially buried, so it's not taller necessarily than the one that's there, but it would have the capacity of both independent tanks together. It would be a dual tank strategy. The advantage of that is that it also opens up this space to be used for something else, and it does not utilize, it leaves all the parking across the way. And obviously there's lots of variations off of these big 4 ideas, but what we're trying to do is to gather feedback about if there is a preference on any of these ideas that we could continue to advance and bring that forward to City Council for consideration. So there are 4 of these ideas, and we're going to ask you to rank them in what you have a preference for.
Does the potential fund for a Milton figure into any of these?
This is independent of what happens with Milton. Yes.
Super quick, I'm just curious what happens to the generator on College Street.
The generator, we have to have generator for the water system, and we're planning on a generator for the new building. So a scenario could be we have one generator for both. Depending, we wouldn't do that if it was across the street, but if it was attached to the building or in another scenario, we would probably combine it with the building generator.
So probably moving of the generator.
The generator would be hidden with our building.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So I have a very different question. Why do we keep talking about partially burying it? I just don't understand what the benefit is. If I have to put the same fence either way, and the fence has to be tall enough that you can't see inside the fence no matter what, does it really matter? If
That's why we want to. That's why we want to.
I'm asking you. There's got to be a reason.
Well, you could potentially not see it, right? You would see a fence. You could see you see as a 8-foot high green wall, as opposed to you wouldn't be able to use that land, but you wouldn't see it.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Let me ask the question this way. You have to put a fence around the water tank no matter what. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I can't see that tank over the top of that fence because the fence is
If it's an 8-foot high fence and we pulled it back at the same height, you would see the water tank above it.
Okay, that's what I was
Yes.
asking.
Or we could do the screen up to the top and then you wouldn't see it.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's 40 foot high, right? So it's a 40-foot high tank. 36 feet high. Yeah. I'm probably don't want to get into the engineering of that yet. So the question is how does the dual tank affect the operation and redundancy and resiliency of it? That's probably a different day conversation. And I think vetting that out, I think makes more sense. But right now we believe it works and that it will be the same as what you have today. Yes.
With respect to the tank and the pump station, is there any difference in the size of the footprints across the options?
It depends on, we have options to make it,
Which one has the smallest footprint?
well, the existing today, the existing small tank has a smaller footprint. If you go back to one of the other options, if we kept the footprint the same, that is what it is today versus that is what it is today.
What's the existing, what's the line with the big tank right now you're talking about combined two? I mean, you're taking it out of service, you're gonna.
I would need my engineers to help me with that answer. And again, if we even want to consider this, all those questions would have to be presented to the city for consideration. Yes, sir.
On the traffic flow on Amherst and Milton, will that be reversed from what it is today, or will the traffic be used on both streets from August to College?
Okay, so back on the site plans, site plan option A keeps the street direction the same. It doesn't change the street traffic either way. Site plan option 2 has the traffic direction the same, but it shortens, Milton does not go there. And again, we'll show you these on boards and give you an opportunity to provide feedback. So I'm going to go, okay.
None of the plans like that. So we live there is, just right the rice and then behind is the mitten. So the parking lot is next to us. It's a public open parking lot.
Yeah, so what we want to do is capture all of these comments. So can I ask you to write that comment down and then we'll capture it so we can communicate it?
So my question is like, I know the space right now is getting smaller and smaller, and the city is only this big. Did you reference like the layer they built the building? So the downstairs is a parking lot, and upstairs is an office, city like this community and library and stuff, and then so there's much nice and there's space. And if you keep everything one story and we don't have space.
Okay, yeah, so that's next. We're going to talk about buildings next. So maybe hold that comment. We're going to show you a couple of options for that. Yes.
I know you want to get comments, so I'll be brief. I'm still a little confused, and maybe it's different than I remember it, but the two water tanks, we're talking about putting a fence around one. We have to put a fence around that big one no matter what we do?
Yes, there is a fence. There will be a fence around both. They both have to be protected.
So that has to be regardless.
Yes.
Can you remind me, and maybe this was in a previous meeting, but why are we moving the community center we're sitting in a well-conditioned building.
I think that was part of, that's probably a much bigger, longer conversation, but that was part of the facilities.
Vote on that? Is
We
it-
did, like, it was like, repeat the question? You don't get the
Yeah, so the facilities master plan that was adopted by council is what we're focusing on right now.
But you're telling me we're not going to vote on whether we move these buildings?
That was 9 months.
What's that?
It was 9 months.
I'll let him answer.
Yeah, so I don't have, that's up really to the city whether they want to do that or not, but right now that, I don't believe that is the plan.
So other issues, like if you build the parking lot, like you could certify parking lot in that vacant area, and then build a wall like for 10 feet or 12 feet wall there, because our house is a safety issue. If it's just like a parking.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
There's
The
a,
fencing along the, because all that backing up to the houses on Rice Boulevard.
This is Milton right here. Milton is right here.
New parking.
Okay, option 3, you're talking about option 3. Yeah, so that is the fence line of the homes that face Rice right there.
And what's the fence gonna be like the parking lot has?
Yeah, we haven't got into that level of detail. I'm assuming we would build the type of fence that the city would like to have there.
well, it's parking lot right now.
Because it's right behind us.
Just for
open your house, it's open parking.
I'm saying, I would assume there would be a fence there. That would be my assumption. So, yes, is
there a way that, can't hear?
Okay.
That we can either have it summarized or somebody.
Yeah, so her question was, is there going to be a fence located between whatever the parking lot here is and the restrooms? And the restrooms? The whole fence.
Fence typically is 8 feet by city requirement. Question is, can we build a taller fence?
But that's could be a possibility.
Also in that case
The question was, could we build a taller fence there?
Also on this diagram, can we rotate this, maybe put a new water tank also against the fence, not like the currently orientation relative to the pump building.
Right, basically.
Here?
No, it's above.
Reverse the water tank.
Oh, to put the tank here in the pump building? Sure.
No. Go into 90-degree rotation.
So the water tank function.
You want to rotate them this way. You want to put the pump building here and tank here?
No, both
Rotate.
pump building and the new water tank against that fence.
Oh, side by side against that. I mean, where and how this is configured is up for conversation. The big idea here is that it moves across the street and frees up this area potentially for additional green space. That's really the big idea. The engineering of all of that, so we have to have.
Vary between my backyard with the parking lot.
Understand, so the concern is the backyard relative to the parking lot. Yes, so Justine's going to start passing out comment cards. Again, we're not through with what we're going to show you, right? But I want to capture some of these so we can keep moving. So there are 4 different water tank ideas that we want to get your feedback on. You can go to the next. So the next,
So
yes.
one of the priorities is the green space, is that what I made for this? Yes.
Correct, yes.
That's what I say,
Yeah. So that question was, is one of the priorities the green space? And the answer is yes. Okay, so the next thing we want to talk about is the building program areas. So one of the second town hall that we did for this project several months ago was about what are the program and functional areas that this new building should have to accommodate programs that the community wants, that either you have now or that you don't have now, that the new building could be designed to accommodate. What we have here is spaces that we're currently assuming, based upon feedback we got in the town halls, feedback we got from the seniors board, feedback that we got from city council. This is where we landed for the spaces that are going to be in the new building. And I'm going to first show you community center, senior center spaces, and then I'm going to show you library spaces second. So the first slide here is showing the bigger meeting spaces. So the first one here is a large multi-purpose room, which is a little bit larger than this room. This room could be reconfigured into two, or potentially be big enough to handle a pickleball court. There's a second multi-purpose room that's about 1,300 square feet that could be potentially subdivided to allow two different classes to go on at the same time. The third space, again, all of these are currently in the consideration to be part of this project. The third one is a singular dedicated meeting space that's about 700 square feet. Next slide, please. There was an identification to have more social spaces that allow building users to come and to congregate, to have conversation, to throughout the day, whether it be to do puzzles or to do games or do other things. So social spaces is one of the areas that have, just small seating areas or flexible spaces that could have, things like pool tables in it or, card game tables, other types of programs that could happen in kind of open social kind of space. And then there's some support spaces. Obviously there will be a lobby with a check-in desk. There will be some public restrooms. There will be a family restroom that will have a shower. And then there will be a kitchen area to allow for meal preparation or warming type uses. And then there's obviously back house, janitor's closets, laundry areas, things of that nature. Next slide, please. And then the staff spaces, there will be spaces for the various uses, as well as spaces for volunteers, break spaces, and workrooms that would be part of that as well. So those are all the spaces that were identified to be part of the senior and community building new facility. The next are spaces that are identified to be used in the library. We've been working with the library, Harris County Library District, as well as feedback from the community to identify what spaces would be in a new library. There would be some smaller meeting spaces that could be either larger or potentially subdividable. There would be some individual study spaces that for either a person or a couple people that could go in and close and do study or reading. There would be spaces like a laptop bar to allow people to come in, plug in, and access resource for laptop spaces. There's an RTF space that could be for things like podcasting or other types of uses like that. And then there's a space called a maker space, which would allow things like 3D printing and other types of physical study of physical type elements.
What is RTF?
The RTF, radio, television, and film. Next. And then obviously there's places for books, and there will be a stack space for the children's area. There will be an enclosed or open reading area that will be used not only for children but for other types of programming spaces. There would be some information desks. There'd be a small area for toddlers to have toys and other things that would be available to them. A restroom dedicated to the children's area, and a calming room to allow someone to calm a child to calm down if they were being disrupted. And there would be a dedicated young adult area that would likely be enclosed so that it could be allowed to be a higher noise level than other parts of the library. But it would have other things, it'd have things in there that would be more tuned to the young adult population. And then it would be an adult area that would have open stacks and reading areas within there, and then obviously places for copy print. And then there would be support spaces for the library as well. Obviously there would be a circulation desk, there would be a place for their to queue books that are coming in through the rotational programs. There'd be book loading and sorting areas. There'd be a book drop space for you to return books off hours. And then there would be some restrooms potentially that would be dedicated to the library as well. So those are the spaces that have been identified through the various public feedback, not only through this type of town hall meeting, but also from meetings with the seniors board and city council to identify what is the best use of the square footage that's been identified for the new project. And those are all identified on these boards over here if you want to take a closer look later. Next slide. So the next thing, I'm going to ask Justine to come up, and we've created what we're calling test fits. And they are just that. They are not floor plans, they are test fits. They are really helping us identify adjacencies about where things potentially could be on a floor relative to each other. There's lots of things that aren't in these yet, mechanical spaces and columns and things that make it a building. So think about these not specifically related to, well, that's the building we're going to get. This is just the first attempt to try to assemble these spaces in a way, and we've got two different ways with some variations that Justine is going to walk through. And there's really two big ideas that we want you to focus on and give us the feedback on the two big ideas. Where the restrooms are in these, that's going to change 30 times as we develop design. But the two big ideas are the ones that we want to get feedback on.
All right, good evening. All right, so as Jeff mentioned, there's two big ideas that we would like your feedback on. And again, we're really looking at adjacencies, how these spaces are next to each other. But the two big ideas are how you enter the building and how the lobby is shared between these two spaces. So in this first test fit, concept one, you enter in, let's see, concept one. Oh, I'm sorry. This one is separate entrances with the attached pump room. So if you remember back on the previous examples with the tank options, this one has the pump room attached to it. So in this option, you enter the library off of Milton, and you enter a separate lobby with checkout spaces, a feature stair with some tiered seating, and then you have all of your library sorting spaces behind the lobby, and then you go upstairs to the lobby. So you have to enter on the first floor. That's where you enter. And then for the community center side, it's a completely separate entrance. You enter from the parking lot that we've created. You enter into a lobby. You can go into a gaming area, and then as you go down the corridor, it has all of your staff spaces and your meeting spaces. So that's really the big idea. Now where all these spaces end up, again, as Jeff said, it's gonna change and flux as we progress these, but that's one of the big ideas. As you move upstairs, all the library spaces, with the exception of the entry, is located upstairs. So you enter, you have all of your stacks centrally located. You have restrooms, outdoor patio, you have all of your meeting spaces around the perimeter and staff spaces. So that is how we're separating these two functions. So concept two is the same, except for we are detaching the pump room. So this gives us a little bit more flexibility with the building, but as you can imagine, less flexibility on the site. So that's just something to keep in mind. But you still enter the library separately from the community center, and they're separate functions. You enter from separate sides, separate streets. There's not a lot of overlap, except for if you want to go to the community center, you have to walk outside the building to go to the library and vice versa.
Yeah, so that's really the big idea on this one is there's two identifiably different entrances to these two functions. The library is essentially on the second floor, the seniors and community building is on the first floor. And to get from one to the other, you have to go outside and go in a different entrance.
What's
Oh, can we go through
the
all?
size
of the building?
Yeah, I was wondering, is there more books?
Generally speaking, what size are y'all?
Yeah, so the program for the community building is a few thousand square feet more than there is here, as well as the library
Yeah.
is a 1,000 square feet, 1,500 square feet bigger as well.
Full spaces grow, yeah.
So let's get through all of it, and then we can come back for
Number 3.
questions.
Yeah. So, test fit number 3, you have a shared lobby. However, you'll see this bigger when you walk around to the boards. They're going to be on this side. You have a shared lobby with shared restrooms, and then you either go straight to the library with the same checkout services, stairs, etc., or you turn left and go into the community center. So then you go down the corridor and go to your meeting spaces or your staff spaces. So that's the big idea. And then again, you go upstairs and you can take a look as you walk around on which spaces you prefer next to other spaces. But again, the big idea is, do you like the idea of coming into the building? You'll have this overlap of seniors going to the community center side and other children going to the library, and there's that moment of interaction. How do you guys feel about that?
So in the previous feedback, there was a lot of people that said the library should be separated from the community center, and some said it should not. So what we're really trying to do here is show you both of those ideas to get additional feedback now that you're looking at something that looks like a building that's not, but you can better understand how it would work if you had a common entrance versus if you had 2 separate entrances.
Concept 4. It's the same shared entrance except for we have removed the pump building. The layout is a little bit different, so you guys can just get a taste of how these different program elements can be laid out. We just wanted you guys to see how we can play with those pieces, but the big idea here is a shared lobby. So as you walk around, keep that in mind.
So again, there's four concepts. There's really 2 big ideas, right? That share a pump room or don't have a pump room. So what we want feedback on is a shared lobby preferable to separate entrances for the library? That's the big question that we want to get tonight. Is there a preference in how that works?
Because we can do acoustical treatments to treat the pump room. That's just FYI.
Okay, so can you go to the next slide? So the last thing we want to do is talk about the architectural treatment of these buildings. And what we're going to do is we have, I think, 8 different strategies that we wanted to get feedback on. What we heard in the town hall comments is a lot of people said we want this building to look like West U. We need some help on what you think West U is, right? And so we're going to give you a bunch of different architectural identities, none of which will be the final answer. But we're giving you some examples that you can weigh in on and say, I have a preference for this versus that. So Justine's going to walk you through these. Yes?
I'm sorry, before we do that, I'm getting lost. We went through that site stuff. We were going to talk about that later, especially for Then we wait for questions. Then we went through 4 possible combinations for buildings that currently are moved over that. We're going to wait to the end for questions. Now we're about to go through 8 architectural options. I can't remember all my questions.
You want more?
No, I don't want paper though, because my questions are going to be so far from when we talked about it. I'm not going to remember what I'm talking about. Can we pause for a moment and maybe ask questions about, answer questions or have questions about the 4 different locations and the 4 different building options and the 2 things you wanted us to answer you?
I don't think they understand the sticker options.
Yeah, so I think, yes, we can. I just don't want to get bogged down here because we want to get through all of it. We want to respect everyone's time. And we have a way that we want to gather this information from you in terms of solutions or comments. So if you have some quick questions, let me try to deal with those.
Oh yeah, so I've been to a couple of these, and previously we were told, because I understand this is community center, that's the library, we're picking them up and moving them over there. And previous times I've been in this building, and we talked about why we had to do that. The reason we were told we had to do that was because these 2 buildings were full and they're not connected to one another. And one of the big reasons for making this whole big thing was so they would all be connected. But now one of the questions is, do we want to separate it? and keep the community center completely separate from the library, which begs the question, if that's what we're doing, leave the library, leave the community center, build them new right here, but why pick them up and move them to connect them, to keep them separate?
Well, again, we're trying to gather information. We heard lots of different opinions, right? And so we're trying to get closer to an answer and give you better information that we can keep dialing in on the feedback so that we're getting specific understanding what people are asking for, if that makes sense.
I think
Okay.
that this gentleman is trying to do a good job, and I think those questions would be more directed towards council. I really do. Versus this gentleman who's just trying to do a job.
Okay, so,
Is there going to be another town hall about this? Is this the only one?
no, we are, yeah, there'll be other council workshops. We potentially could have more town halls as we get the design further evolved. The intent is we want to get a lot of public input on what we're doing. We don't want there to be surprises. We want to make this building be a reflection of what this community wants it to be.
All right, so as Jeff mentioned, we are going to give you 8 different potential architectural styles. None of these are going to be the final building. And this is not by any means a full collection of what the building could potentially be. We want to give you a wide range of styles so that way as you go and look and choose which one is your first preference, we will get a good idea of you guys are leaning towards this style and not a lot of people are going towards this style to give us input on the sort of direction. So just keep that in mind as we look at these. Also, I want to point out as we walk through these different styles, we're less concerned with materiality at this point. We will get into that as we move along during the design process. Materials, colors, all that stuff, we're less concerned with that. We're more concerned with the presence of the building and how the building presents itself generally, aesthetically, the overall forms, right?
And what she means by materiality, that means we're not trying to get is it stucco or brick or stone. We're looking for just overall sort of appeal.
Yeah. So the first style we're calling style A. This is really about a lot of opportunities for shade, a bit more modern in style and language. Style C is very modern. It's more minimalistic in nature, very simple forms. Style D has a more industrial feel. It has a lot of transparency to it, also a bit more modern. Style E is quite a bit different, opposite direction. It has a very residential feel to it, as you recognize the Westview Recreational Center. So just again, wide range. Architectural style F is more about screen facades. It has a rhythmatic nature to it. Certain level of transparency, but also mostly about screen. Style G is very traditional. It does have some elements of residential, but it has more of a civic presence to it. And then architectural style F is similar to G in that it has a civic presence to it, heavy columns, but it takes away the residential feel, so it feels more like a commercial building as opposed to the previous one. So again, this is not a full range of styles, but they're all very different, so we can know which ones you guys lean to and which ones you're just no, right? So.
Okay, so let's talk about how we want to gather information about this. So we have we have 2 different methods we're going to do. So we're going to hand out some new comment cards for you to comment on any of the topics that you want. And then we're going to hand you some sheet with 8 green dots on it. And the dots are going to be a number 1 on some and a number 2 on some. And we have on this side of the room, and we need to turn those last 2 boards around. Those are the architectural styles. So what we want, if you could go, this is what we're asking. So if you have a first preference for any of these, so let's just use this as an example. On this first board is the site circulation. The top 2 is site plan A, the bottom 2 are site plan B. So if you have a preference just for A versus B, we would put the green dot for 1 on the site plan A, and if site plan B is your second preference, you put a 2 there. If you don't like one or the other, I wouldn't put a green dot at all. In terms of the water tank locations, there are 4 different options, and we're asking for you to tell us which is your first preference and what is your second preference with the 1 versus the 2. Obviously, there's 4 choices here, so we're just looking for what are your top 2 preferences for those ideas. For the test fits, those 2 boards in the center there, those are one concept on one side. On the right side is the shared entrance. On the left side is the separate entrances. So those are the 2 big ideas. We're showing you that the pump building can be attached or not attached in either strategy. So this is really about, is there a preference for a shared holistic building or one where this really has more separation to it? And then the last pair of boards is back in the back, and that has the different architectural styles. And again, we want you to put 2 dots on that board. A number 1 for which, if there's any in there that you are more, you think is most appropriate, and a 2 for the one that you think might be the second most appropriate to give us some feedback. So you should be getting one of these that has 8 dots. They have number 1s and number 2s. So what we want is for potentially 2 dots to be on the site circulation, 2 dots on the water tank, 2 dots on the test pit boards, and 2 dots on the architectural styles. Yes, we're going to ask you now. You can get up and walk around. All right, you ready for me to go through comments? Okay, Juan, can I get you to help me up here, please? Okay, I'm going to start going through the written comments. Okay, the first comment is, I like the plan that keeps Milton Street open all the way as it is now, keep the flow of traffic in the same as it is now, and if more green space is wanted, just work as it is now, as we don't need more green. We already have a park, a good park. The next one is, I'm very excited about phase 2 and the walkability and green space, as well as more space for programming and staff. The next one is very concerned about truncation of Milton. Could potentially affect our block of 3900 Milton by causing a parking problem. We already deal with Huffington parking. The next is, I prefer option 4 tanks. It would be key to get the church involved to make sure their requirements are met on Milton, not currently considered. Ability to drop off seniors and vehicles able to pass. The next one is, I would like the City Council to reconsider the location of the community center and library to remain in its current location, and for the city offices to be moved to the space behind the water tank. I support the fire station staying at University and Auden. Milton must remain fully open to reduce confusing traffic congestion and enhance safety. Architectural styles preferred. Next one is, it's hard to make decisions, preferences without having some cost information on each range. And so let me just talk through that. So, not counting the water tank, because I don't know what the cost differences are for those. that I believe that the other options, including different architectural styles, cost shouldn't be the consideration here. I think we can work with the same budget to achieve any of those options. So that's why we're not talking about cost, because I think we can deliver the product in a range of any of these for the same budget. Does that make sense? Seems odd that we are spending a large amount of money with no vote. The next one is, why are we doing any of this? Will the concept decided by City Council be put to a citizen vote? Or go formal or stop? Is this a foregone conclusion? How much has PGAL been paid to date, and what is the estimated total? PGAL not meeting, asking for input on architectural styles. We have not decided we are doing anything. This process is bizarre in the engineering, risk analysis, cost. Before any further work, we are planning a wedding without a couple to marry. The next one is, I strongly prefer the community building and library to be separate buildings. The next one is, in previous information sessions, you described these plans as radical. Do you still consider the city's plans regarding our facilities and streets and infrastructure as radical? I'm not sure I ever characterized it that way. The next one is, closing west end of Milton will endanger students at Westview Church and at Westview Elementary because it puts too much traffic on Auden and beyond Rice Boulevard on narrow streets. Traffic will stack up on Auden waiting to turn onto Milton, then Amherst. Next one is, test fits, pump room, generator space, and its diesel tank should not be part of the building footprint. Tanks. City does not have unlimited funds to bury Hertz tanks. Relocation of 18 to 24-inch piping is very costly, and long-term maintenance and corrosion protection will be very much more costly than above ground. Leave tanks above ground and paint exteriors with murals. Next one is, current e-power generator for water plant is the size of a small box truck. This should not be shared with the community building water plant. Genset has different needs for space and servicing than a simple life safety generator for community building needs. Pump room should be away from the homes. New pumps should have VDFs and N+1 set up for control, vibration and noise. It will be too great to incorporate into the community building. Also needs for access for piping and pump and piping service and repairs. The next one, apart from the senior board, what other special interest groups have been able to meet so frequently with your firm and the city to provide their feedback on these plans? Were any other special interest groups provided the opportunity to tour out-of-town facilities and meet privately with you and the city? So we have met with the senior board, and we met with the rec board. We have seen a couple times. We met with the rec board once as well. The park board, sorry. In 2021, your firm was tasked with assessing our facilities. You rated our community building, last renovated in 2011, as fair, with no visible signs of foundation issues. The 2023 report in good condition, and the floors are in good condition as interiors have been recently remodeled. What's changed in your assessment to precipitate demolition? I think there's other factors that we have previously discussed. In 2021, your firm was tasked with performing assessments on all of our facilities. You rated our library, last renovated in 2017, as fair with no signs of foundation issues, and said the interior space was recently remodeled and in good condition. What has changed your assessment to precipitate demolition? Now that the community center land is not needed for a new fire station, why is the city going ahead with these unnecessary plans for phase 2? If the wastewater treatment plant has catastrophic failure like that which almost occurred during Harvey, will we be able to halt any of this unnecessary work? Increasing walkability and safety for bikers, etc. usually entails discouraging car traffic. What is driving the plan to increase parking? I've never had trouble parking within a block of the Westview Elementary, the Fields, Community Center, Westview Baptist on Sunday morning. Seems like unnecessary increase in dignity. Why can't the new City Hall be built by the water tanks instead of relocating the land needed for a community garden center or library? If the space next to the tanks is going to be so pleasant, why doesn't City Council want to use it for a City Hall? Increasing parking in the immediate vicinity of community building, libraries, schools, churches means increasing vehicular traffic in these areas. As it currently exists, there are usually just enough parking, and any overflow is found a block or two away. That is much safer than increasing the number of cars and humans in these lots and streets. I suggest any doubters navigate the zoo lot any morning at 10 a.m. to experience how increasing parking density creates risk to pedestrians and children. Has your firm ever done award-winning historical renovations? What consideration is being given to the environmental impact of demolishing the majority of our city? How will lead and asbestos abatement be done? Will the pre-1970 buildings be taken down piece by piece, as is recommended? I would like to see the large windows connect into our outdoor space, reminiscent of the wonderful mid-century design of our current library. I've received 2 flyers talking about oak trees to be destroyed in this project. Please clarify how many, if any, trees will be cut down. I prefer to separate entrances for library and senior center, keep the small children away from seniors with vision and mobility issues, prefer architectural style E. I suggest the PGAL is showing images for their proposal that gives the viewer a false impression of what can be achieved for Commons, Westview Green, and none of the green space in the proposal comes close to that scope depicted in the images of the proposal. These kind of images are not realistic for the sites available and can lead council and public to get incorrect high hopes. Since the fire station is staying in the existing location, why can't the community center and library stay here in the current location? Where's the wisdom? Truncating Milton Street will impede our ability to fulfill our mission, limit access to our buildings for those who use, work, attend religious services, create a substantial burden on Westview Baptist Church and religious exercise by its members, and the, I think, family-based something offered to the community. Not satisfy a compelling interest of the city to the highest order. Treat the church on terms that are unequal to non-citizen organizations. Site plan A, Milton Street fully open, 66 parking, 5,000 less green space, don't believe benches, and okay losing Milton Street, pushing cars onto 3900 block off Milton for parking is justified by additional green space gained or traffic safety. How many pedestrians accidents occur now? I do not believe pedestrian traffic study is a big issue, seems to be the solution searching a problem. What would have Amherst traffic, new street traffic, so problems still exist with respect to pedestrian for traffic safety. Meeting space and social space. This is premature without knowing the costs or even estimating costs. How can we knowledgeably rank these? I think minimizing footprint is paramount. So lean optimally and dual tank, but I'm sure feel a different way if it costs 2 to 3 times. As the road layout, it makes a ton of sense to link the parking areas so people don't play something across Milton. Nobody wants to walk through a pump room. Please, public shouldn't have access in the first place. We shouldn't move down the street and rebuild those two buildings to get a way to separate them. It's silly and woefully short-sighted to ask us to weigh in on theoretical designs that don't carry precedence. My house is in back of the proposed parking lot. My concern is my backyard is exposed to the parking lot. There is a safety concern. I would like to see if there's a way to create a barrier between my backyard and the parking lot as shown on the right. The city could allow a taller fence, such as a 10-foot fence. Totally against the calming area in the library. That's not a good use of space and is most likely be unused. If kid needs to calm down, the parent nanny can take them outside at pickleball courts. Blocking off Milton will put pedestrians at greater risk due to congestion in streets surrounding the area. I have used this being a parent of Westview Elementary and Westview Baptist Community. Closing Milton is adverse to the function and usability of the Westview Baptist Church as an institution of this size. Physical plant, members, and non-member participation requires ample ingress and egress for safety and parking and building access. Phase 2 should proceed with Phase 2 building of senior and community center as planned, absent a specific professional report stating that our wastewater treatment facility is at critical or failure in the immediate or near future. Keep Milton open completely. We have a park in the immediate vicinity which is rarely full on busy green space with water tanks surrounded by 8-foot high fencing is not needed or real. More importantly, does the city really want to create a rift war with our long-term neighbor, the Baptist Church, by shutting down all access to Milton, to their entrance to the seniors and to the children's classes gathering area? Many Westview and Houston residents also use the entrances for childcare pickup and programming. This would cause significantly more congestion. Green space is nice for all the city events. Make it big, great. Water tank, option 4, but if not, moving, decorate, please. And library, put comfortable couches, seating, fireplace, pillows, make it comfortable, inviting. Do not want Milton closed. It will cause so much traffic at school drop-off and pickup times and during Little League soccer times. It greatly reduces access to large parking lots at Westview Baptist that are used at all times of day and night by many city activities. Any plan the city council has on its agenda or adapts that truncates, redirects, or closes off traffic on Amherst or Milton to the intersection that's already concentrated with homes and vehicular traffic will not be the least restrictive means for the city to further its interests, impede West University Baptist Church property and facilities for those who use, work, and attend religious services, limit access to the Westview Baptist Church property, facilities, and for those that use it, work, and attend religious services. Create a substantial burden on Westview Baptist Church and religious exercise by its members and the faith-based members of our community, not satisfy compelling interest of the city to the highest order, makes no sense fiscally or politically, treat Westview Baptist on terms that are unequal to non-religious organizations and have an adverse impact on the residents, businesses, youth organizations, Westview Baptist, the school, and other patrons of business. I am in favor of city City Council presents and cuts down on the vehicle traffic in affected areas, increases green space, and makes more pedestrian friendly as long as the plan reflects the least restrictive means for the city to further its interests, fulfills the city's plan without impeding on the church's ability to carry out its mission of serving its religious members, accomplishes the city goals while not limiting access to any church property or facilities for those who use, work, or attend religious services, serves a purpose prioritized by council by creating a substantial burden on the church, religious exercise by its members, or any faith-based ministries offered to the community. Presents and satisfies the compelling interest of the city of the highest order, makes good fiscal and political sense, treats the church on equal terms as non-religious organizations, has no adverse impact on residents, businesses, youth organizations, school churches, or their patrons. Last one. Make Milton narrower, make pedestrian roads wider, more trees. Grass, flowers, fountains, benches, space for teenagers too. Okay. Thank you for your input. We're going to take this information and we will try to assemble it and use it to advance the project as we go forward. So thank you for your participation.